Okay, hello everyone. Hope you all are doing really well. Welcome to the Blackbaud Dev Days conference. I'm delighted to be here and introducing a friend and colleague, Tom Scarlett, who's going to be talking about some of the great stuff that they have been building for their end users at UConn. Just a reminder, please feel free to add any questions in the Q&A. I'll be monitoring that. And then stick around. We will do a post-session survey. It's important to respond to the survey. The three top presentations based on people's ratings in the survey will be invited to come present at Blackbaud Dev Days this year in September in Seattle. So let's send Tom to Seattle this year.
Right.
All right. So I'll pass it over to Tom. Thanks so much. Take it away, Tom.
All right. Thanks very much, Jason. So welcome, everybody. We got half an hour or so. A lot of this is screenshots that we'll kind of walk through. And before we get into it, this is a dashboard that we created, and I'll kind of walk through why we did it and what our choices were and some of our hurdles. But I also want to point out, if you've done Power BI work or Tableau and things like that, obviously we're not saying that this is the be all end all of dashboarding, but there are a couple things in there that we kind of figured out along the way that we thought would be worth sharing as far as the design, some choices we made, as well as some drill through options that a colleague of mine, Matt Schumacher, who I think is online here, came up with to kind of give us a one-click drill down, which to us was kind of an improvement as far as the user interface for how Power BI typically handles drill through. So with that, I'm going to share screen here and hopefully it will come up correctly. Everybody see a PowerPoint with our lovely building that we don't use anymore?
Looking good, Tom.
All right, great. And I apologize, I did not get Matt's name on here, but this was a co-design project, and I'm going to call him out when we get to the parts that he specifically worked on, because they really made this work the way we wanted it to. So a little bit about UConn, our environment, and kind of where we are with Blackbaud CRM. We've been on it for a while. We started in version 1 point something and went through some transitions and are now on version 4, Service Pack 34. We are self-hosted. We've always been on-site, or technically on-site, and now we're hosting our own in Azure. We had some issues that kept us from going to Blackbaud hosted environment, but if any of you out there are self-hosted, you know that there are some wrinkles to that can be make things difficult. So I'll cover a couple of those and what we did to try to get past there. You might also hear me mention something that we call UConn Mart, which is a database that we created in 2013 or 2012. The Blackbaud data warehouse was really not fully baked when we kind of needed it. So we went a different path. Now, obviously the Blackbaud data warehouse is humongous and fully featured, et cetera. But because we had put a lot of eggs in that basket, we've used that and continue to use it and have expanded it over time. So if you see that, it's not the Blackbaud data warehouse. It is completely custom UConn stuff. We've got just under 1 million constituents, about 2.5 million revenue transactions. And my team deals with anything SDK related, interfaces, reports, customizations, etc. There's 5 of us that do SDK work. And we also have 2 awesome business analysts that help with specifications and working more with end users to kind of tease out requirements for things that we need to work on. Our environment, again, is hosted, and because it's so easy to spin up machines, all the developers have their own dev box with a full copy of our production data on it. Most of that is all kind of self-contained in one VM per developer, the report server, the database server, et cetera. We also have in our production and QA environments a paper save implementation, which is a document imaging system doesn't really impact this customization, but I just kind of wanted to give you kind of a lay of our technical land. All right, so what is this about? We have a fairly new university president who is extremely involved in fundraising, and it's awesome for us. And she works about 23 hours a day, and 22 of those hours, it seems like, are spent working on engaging our prospects and donors. So it's a huge benefit for us as a foundation who is technically separate from the university, but we are wholly there to support the university. But with our president, whose name is Radenka Merrick, she has a lot of data needs and demands. And so she really kind of started just hitting us with all kinds of requests for data and the need to see things quickly and turn around things quickly. And one of the kind of things she kept going back to was, I need to be able to see everyone that I might be involved with. Either I'm on their team, I've had some engagement with them in the past, they've been identified as what we call a priority principal prospect, and that's usually handled by our research folks. Or there's a university team lead assigned, a dean or someone else like that. So Radenka wanted to be able to easily kind of dive into that universe, and then also kind of easily see what's happening with them. And I'll get to that in just a second. Um, what she wanted to see were types of engagement and what she called priority engagements. These don't necessarily mean interactions she's involved with, but interactions she wants to be aware of. And our senior leadership team and senior fundraisers work with her regularly and kind of know, which of these interactions that we're having need to be flagged so that Radenka kind of sees them on her radar. She also wanted to know about open opportunities for anyone in this universe that she identified, and other pending steps. Even if they're not flagged priorities, she still wanted to see what's out there. So that was kind of the first email we got, kind of said, this is what I'm looking for. We dug a little deeper into that, and the example that she gave us was, I want to be able to see something like a status board at an airport. It's easy to read. I know exactly what I'm looking at. I can see when something's late. And that's kind of where she started as far as what she wanted it to look like and act like. The next big thing that came out of that second conversation was she wanted to be able to identify who is responsible. So if something's late or something's not late, or she wants to follow up, she wants to know right there who's the fundraiser that's managing that thing so I can talk to them directly. Next thing she wanted was a drill down to a one-page prospect summary with a variety of information, spouse information, rating, giving, etc. And then she wanted to be able to just kind of thumb through this universe of all those prospects that might meet any of those criteria and easily see a variety of information, be able to sort and filter, export that if she needed. So at this point, we were just about ready to start working. um, we kind of went back to her about, well, how much interaction do you want to have with this dashboard? And she came up with a set of filters. And this status filter that she described was really related to that airport status board look, kind of what's current, what's on time, what's delayed, and what's a flight, kind of later in the day. So it's still on time and nothing's wrong with it. She also had identified a number of groups that was what she called them to make up our universe for her, that is corresponded to, again, folks that have had priority engagement with her or someone else. They are principal prospects, she's on the team, etc. And a particular prospect could fall into one or more or even all of those different groups. It's not exclusive. She also wanted to be able to search easily by capacity, as well as filtering out organizations versus individuals. On that universe tab, she wanted a few more items: birth month to be able to search, name search, and a CBSA code search. So if she's visiting Florida, she could easily see all of the kind of geographic kind of buckets of folks that we have in Florida through that search. And obviously, she wanted it to be sortable and dynamic and up to date, et cetera. So now we got all of that. That's where we started. We decided pretty quickly we're going to use Power BI for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's flexible in terms of what it can do and the slicers and sortability and things like that. But the biggest option for us that really drove us in this direction was ease of access. Because we're a separate 501c3, we have our own Active Directory. It is not super easy for folks around campus to connect to our CRM system. It's better. We worked with Blackbaud over the last year to kind of upgrade our single sign-on kind of capabilities as a non-Blackbaud hosted site, but we still had some hoops that required some additional keystrokes for either password typing or Duolingo, or not Duolingo, two-factor authentication and things like that. So that was kind of what drove us away from trying to either use CRM, something with that we built with the SDK or SSRS, or embedding this within CRM. We kind of chose to not do that for those reasons. We quickly ran into a couple of hurdles. We knew we needed this drill down capability. So from either of the two main dashboard tabs, if someone wanted to click on a prospect name, a single click, we wanted to get them to kind of a one pager. We have that already in Blackbaud CRM that we've built. But again, for issues I just outlined, that was not something that was easily attainable for folks who are outside of our domain, which basically meant everyone other than folks working in the foundation. So we decided not to link directly to CRM. Then we thought, well, we could use the Power Builder kind of native drill through feature. Can be clunky. If you've ever used that, it's a multi-click step process. Click on a row, get a pop-up menu, click drill through, then click the target you want to drill through to, which has been told to us that it's a little clunky by some of our end users. So we decided, let's try to find a single click option. And then the last thing we kind of ran into was, how are we going to flag these priority interactions and make it easy for our end users to attach that kind of flag to any interaction that they're putting in the system? And for that, we use the SDK, and we just extended the interaction forms to accommodate that. Let's see. So what does this look like? I'll walk you through this a little bit here. This is kind of where we ended up. And to just kind of orient you, this is the kind of airport dashboard thing. You can see the green, the red, and the yellow kind of bubbles that tell you, is this flight on time? Are we boarding? Is this delayed? Is it coming down the pike later today and everything's going to be fine? There's not a lot of data here. We purposely kept this data set small, and I'll show you in a minute when I look at the tables that drive this process, the data sets inside of Power BI. We basically limited, no matter what these different buckets are, these categories, whether it's priority engagement items, opportunities to close, opportunities who have yet to be asked, or other pending steps. We wanted those to all come and source from one data set. And for two reasons. It makes it easier to build stuff out here, obviously, but knowing our president, and it's very likely that she will add more categories down the road. So we wanted something that was extensible and easy to add to, because we just know that's coming. The right side has your typical slicers and filters. And again, those groups are not mutually exclusive. So any one person or prospect might be in one or more of those. And I think I blurred out every prospect's name on here. I sure hope I did. We'll just keep going. All right, before I get into some more specifics about the dashboard pages, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what I was talking about with that data model. There's really only two data sets or two tables that we are dealing with. And I know you can't read the columns in here. The tall one is what we call the universe, and that's one row per prospect. And it's got, how much have they given? What's their most recent gift date? What's the most recent date they've been contacted? What's the most recent date they've been contacted by the president? What's their capacity? A lot of stuff, just typical one-page bio type stuff. The other kind of medium-sized table there on that grid, the one that's blown up on the screen here, is the category detail. And that's the stuff that shows up on the kind of airport grid. This is the one that is more generic. There's only about 10 or 12 columns in here. And this was a way for us to add categories over time without having to re-architect things. So this was kind of the extensible piece that we hope, and so far, knock on wood, is working out pretty well for us. The other tiny little box on that data model image that you might not be able to see is something that was constructed from those two other data sets, and it's really just used to drive one of those slicer components in Power BI. So it's not technically sourced directly from our database. All right. So a couple things about these filters. Let me grab my notes here to remember what the numbers are. So this is a shot of what we call the current flights, what's out there that's currently boarding or something like that, if you want to think of it that way. And the time frames that we were given for kind of what does Rodenka think of as current these are things that are due within the last 10 days. So they're things that are currently active, they're being closed, they should be being completed soon, if not already. So these are the things that she wants to really drive and make sure she contacts folks to say, hey, Frank, I see you were supposed to meet so-and-so and it's late now. Where are we at with that? And she literally is doing that, picking up the phone to make those contacts with certain fundraisers. And I apologize, my screenshots are a little old, so it looks like these dates are older than they are. But this current set is for anything that's due within the last 10 days. The next kind of filter over that says future, that's the good stuff that's coming down the road. These are flights that are taking off later in the day. I'm not really concerned about them right now. Everything's fine. This is obviously the biggest portion of the data in these data sets, but the one that is looked at the least because it's down the road and there's not a lot of kind of hands-on that has to happen with these yet. The last bit is the delayed flights. These are the ones everybody hates to see. And when we first rolled out this dashboard, we actually took a pause before we made it public to the president and gave some of our fundraisers a chance to look at it and maybe update some things, close some engagement items that had been open for 2 years that were still saying they were pending and things like that, to give everybody a chance to do a little catch up and data cleanup before Dr. Merrick got her eyes on it and started asking why these things were so late. But this is shrunk over time. The fundraisers all know that Rodenka is actively looking at this and using it, and it's helped them or helped us kind of convince the fundraisers to be a little more proactive, at least about these high profile prospects. So one kind of unintended consequence of this is that we've got some better, cleaner, more up-to-date data on our highest prospects. Let's see. The next tab, so that's kind of the status tab, and now this next tab is kind of the universe, and this is if anyone wants to go through and say, well, I want to look at anybody who's in Bradenton, Florida, who's at a solicitation stage and who might have a university team lead assigned, whatever combination that might make sense. So this has a bit more information. The blow up on the slide here, and I apologize, it popped up already. I wanted to point out one thing that we added that I always forget is in Power BI. I don't use it every day. I use it sometimes. When you've got these multi-selection drop-down pick lists, you can turn on a kind of a search through there. And for a lot of these, like CBSA codes or prospect names, there's a couple thousand in here. You don't want to scroll through that. So you can turn on a search filter. So if you're new to Power BI and if you didn't know this, when you're in design mode, you can go to that slicer, hit the little 3-dot menu button at the top, and there's a search option. Click that on, and it enables type ahead on the drop-down menu list as well, which makes things a little easier for folks. Before I continue, I want to point out the I've tried to blur out our prospect names here, but you can see that they are underlined. And that's the same thing on this tab, as well as the kind of dashboard airport tab. Um, and that's on purpose. That's the visual cue to the user that this is a one-click hyperlink. And I'm going to kind of cover how we accomplish that on the next couple slides here. This is the drill down. Now, this is, again, we have something similar to this in Blackbaud CRM, but we had to kind of recreate it in Power BI. And this is, again, from my colleague, Matt Schumacher, put this together. Really like the look and feel. It was a huge hit with our president and the other senior fundraisers. It's got some nice header information, quickly and easily can see what groups this prospect falls into in that universe of presidential prospects, recent gifts, pending steps, an overall strategy, which could be a very large note. You can see there's a scroll bar on there, and you could see potentially pages of information about the strategy, as well as open opportunities. But how do you get here? That's the big piece that I wanted to kind of highlight. Um, the we didn't want to use the drill through on Power BI. So the mechanism that Matt came up with was to create a second dashboard report, basically. And the key was it had to have a filter on it for a constituent ID. And I'll come back to that in a second. Then in our dashboard that we've been looking at, the ones I've been showing you screenshots of, we added a calculated or a kind of a computed field in our data set that constructs the URL of this drill down dashboard. And then it pipes in a parameter depending on what row somebody clicked on. And then lastly, we had to build a way to get back to the main dashboard from this drill down. So I'll show you what that looks like. So here's our drill down page, and you can see there's a filter that was set up. And I don't know if you're not familiar with Power BI, this little eyeball with a line through it means that yes, that filter's on this page, but no, it's not displayed. So the user's technically not going to see that that thing exists, but it has to be there in order for this feature, this kind of single click drill down to work. Once that is set up, you go back to your kind of parent or source report, and we added another column that ended up getting called drill link column. You can call it anything you want. And essentially, we grabbed the URL, the shareable URL for the drill down component. And then we added in, and I filtered this because it was so long. We added in this question mark filter equals, and then the name of our data set / column name equals, and then we substitute the actual lookup ID for the row that was clicked on. So it builds a URL that's unique to each row. Anytime they click on it, that's where they're going to go. So once you get this data in your data set, great. How do you apply it? And that's, just to be clear, we did not use the built-in drill through feature. Instead, if you go to the properties, and this was set up on the prospect name column. That's why that looks clickable on the output. One of the options down through there under cell elements is an option that's called web URL. If you turn that on and click the little function icon, it opens the screen you see at the bottom of the slide here. And basically you just say, when they click on this, use this particular field to provide what you want to use for that URL. Pretty snazzy. When you use that and then look at the URL, I know it's hard to see and I kind of blurred it out. Once it drills through, you can see exactly what was built, and that's going to match up with what that kind of computed field was on our parent report. So that's how we call that report with a single click instead of using that drill through, which was multiple clicks. All right, last but not least, how do we get back to the summary report? Dropped a button on the top of the page, and this was, again, something else that Matt threw on there for us. Just set up as a web URL and deposited the shared URL that you get from within Power BI. Just drop it in there, and away you go. Let's see. I think that was it. We're about 5 minutes early. Not sure, Jason, if there's any questions, but I'm going to leave our emails up here. Feel free to contact Matt or myself if you have follow-up questions after the fact, but I'll see if anybody's still there.
So there's no questions in the Q&A, and the chat is just full of love and admiration, Tom and Matt. So well
Great.
done there. There is one question from, did you have to obtain any buy-in from the president when designing this highly interactive report?
Absolutely. We did a proof of concept with mocked up data. I think it was literally a spreadsheet that I just typed data into to use as the data source in order to present that kind of look and feel for the airport grid. And absolutely, we did not continue until she had seen that and said, yep, that'll do it. That's what I want. Yep.
Great. Another question from Becky. Any tips on getting fundraisers to enter their next steps, etc., properly to pull into the report?
Yeah, good question. So two things. We've had a metrics report for our fundraisers for years, and one of the things at the top of the report in big font is the average number of days after a interaction date, a completed date, that interaction is actually marked completed. And if it's not under 10 days, it's flagged as red and everybody can see it. So I say part of my response would be, unless people can't see that they're not entering the data, they're probably not going to enter it. So the more people that can see it, the more likely they are. And with our president looking at this, I guarantee you that lit a fire under some people to do some stuff.
Great.
Yep.
Another question from Frank. How long after an interaction is flagged as a priority does it continue to show on the dashboard?
Gotcha. So once that interaction is flagged as a priority, it's always a priority. The status will determine how long it stays there. So if it's not completed, then it's either going to show up as a future pending interaction, one of the green ones, or red if it's more than 10 days past due, or yellow if it's kind of right now happening. So it's going to stay out there until it's completed. And that's, again, when we first threw this out there, we had some interactions that were literally 2 years old that just had never been closed with, $20 million donors that, we had to do some cleanup. This was a good way to show them that, which was nice.
Great. And maybe one from the chat from Christina. After creating this for the president, was it requested to make a variation for your fundraisers?
Yes and no. I mean, that they can access this, the folks that interact with the president a lot, but already in our queue is a kind of fundraiser specific, taking what we've called a development officer metric summary and development officer metric detail reports that were SSRS and have been out there for 10 years. So we're already in the queue building out something similar to replace those two. And we're going to use this same kind of concept as a starting point. So yes, definitely.
Great. Okay, thanks, Tom. I think we are just at the end. I'm going to launch the survey. Let's send Tom and Matt to Seattle. Everyone, thanks so much for a great presentation today. And it's been fantastic to learn about how your president is using these innovative Power BI reports.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Great job, Scott, Tom.
All right. Are we going to see the survey, or does that come through email or something?
I honestly don't know, but I will find out and let you know. I'll follow up with you about that. It's a great question.
All right. Well, I'm going to drop off. Good to see everybody.
Enjoy.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.